Okie dokie. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Saturday. I hope your morning, evening, afternoon is going well so far, wherever in the world you may be. Thank you all so much for joining us for session 2 of advocacy training. We're going to get started in just a minute here as we're letting people flow in. But for right now, go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know your name, your age, and where you're from. If you're from the United States or anywhere else in the world, let us know. And we're going to get started here in just a minute.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you, even though I can't see you.
Hello, hello. Nice to see everybody rolling in.
All right, we got the UK represent. Arizona. Very
Landlocked.
ocean themed.
Yeah. Landlocked. But ocean is still important. I respect it.
We got
Baton
Brazil,
Rouge.
Mexico,
Oh,
Louisiana,
Brazil.
France. Amazing. Nigeria, New York,
Long Island.
Gosh. We got a lot. We got the whole world
Japan.
We
represented.
got the whole world. We're just
Yeah,
missing
thank you
Antarctica.
guys. There's so many of you from kind of rough time zones, so I hope it's not too late for some of you. I know it could be potentially the middle of the night, so I definitely appreciate you guys joining us. Hi, Matai. Good to see you. We have a alumni member of our World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council joining us today. That's wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
From Suriname to Texas.
That's wonderful. Awesome. Well, as you guys are still introducing yourselves, I'm just going to go over our general agenda for today. So again, welcome. We're going to introduce our lovely panelists, have a little bit of a discussion, and then hopefully have some time for Q&A and then a few announcements at the end. I see Black Girls Dive Foundation. Wonderful. Thank you guys for joining us. We have Sri Lanka, Kenya. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, so if you guys are joining us for the first time, if you've not been attended a session of youth advocacy training before, welcome. We are very happy to have you. This is session 2 of 4. So if you missed session 1, don't worry. All of the recordings for all of the sessions will be available on the World Ocean Day YouTube channel. And you can catch up on what you've missed. You can watch other sessions from previous versions of the program that we've had. And yeah, just feel free to let me know if you have any questions. And as we're going into our discussion as well, feel free to, if you have any questions, use that Q&A feature, and we will try our best to get to all of your questions at the end. So first up, we're going to introduce our first speaker. This is Ariel Maldonado, creator of one of my personal favorite Instagram accounts, Go Green, Save Green. I've been following her for a very long time, and just does a really wonderful job of, connecting with folks on different sustainability topics and policy outcomes, decisions, solutions, all sorts of stuff. She is just a wonderful science communicator, and I'm really excited to chat with her today. And Ariel, I'll let you, introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I have been doing this since 2018. I made the account because when I started kind of really getting into climate, I actually really wanted to follow an account like mine, and I searched for weeks. I was like, somebody's for sure done this. It's like so obvious, and nobody had done it. And so then I started doing it, and like a big reason too was like I was actually very like shy. I was almost like a closet environmentalist because like I didn't grow up with anything that kind of would have made me like more likely to do this than anybody else. And so I was just really nervous on like how people would receive it, people around me. So it was kind of a way for me to like talk about really in-depth things and also like not have to show my face and be like, hey guys, blah blah blah, blah. So like memes were kind of how I like built up my following, and I have gotten so many opportunities through this page. It's been crazy. I didn't realize that it was such a intensely needed niche to be able to like so clearly communicate complicated things in such a simple way. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ariel. We're really happy to have you. And our second speaker is the wonderful Kate Insley, one of my coworkers with the Ocean Project at World Ocean Day. I've been working with Kate for the last 3 years, and she does wonderful work with us and with a bunch of other organizations. So, Kate, I will let you introduce yourself as well.
Amazing. I am impressive that you got my name. So I'm Kate Sutter formerly, but I did get married. So Insley is the new last name. I've been working in the ocean space for over 10 years. So I worked at the Ocean Agency and I did Google Underwater Street View. I've done ocean work at the American Museum of Natural History. And currently I work at Only One, which was started by some Nat Geo photographers as a nonprofit, and I also work at World Ocean Day. So there I do a whole bunch of comms work, I do branding and marketing, and I'm not nearly as funny as Ariel, but I'm trying and I find inspiration. So I do manage a lot of large accounts, but not by my own growth. I've been put in that role to keep the growth up. So I am pretty good at that part. So I think we're going to be a dynamic duo together.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited. So, our first question, I think, is kind of a tricky one. It's almost common sense, especially when we're having this conversation under the context of young people and youth and Gen Z, because why is it important to include promotion and publicity in your conservation efforts? I feel like just doing that is a very inherent, almost second nature kind of a thing for young people who've grown up on the internet. But I would like for either or both of you to kind of talk about, what is the importance of utilizing social media and communications to talk about conservation? And, are there any particular ways that digital media can impact conservation outcomes, whether that's, policy or a special day like World Ocean Day? And if either of you have any specific examples, I think that's a good place for us to start. So I'll let either one of you kind of take that.
You want to go first, Kate?
Okay, I'll go first. So I mean, the biggest and most obvious for me is I work at Only One, and that's a big part of our work there is advocacy. So we push petitions, and by finding these people online, because right now online is just where people are at, so you got to meet them where they're at. We can really grow numbers, and we've been able to hand off some like incredibly impressive petitions of like 500,000 people to our representatives. And 500,000 people is not nothing, and they really, really take into account those numbers. So it's from an advocacy and policy standpoint, like there is power in numbers, and the numbers are on social media. Whether you like it or not, people are there, and it's an incredibly powerful marketing tool. So, I mean, you might have also, seen a nonprofit and they don't have social, and immediately you're like, that's a bummer. I don't know. Like, how do I follow along? Because I don't really want to add my name to an email list. But social is a great way where you can pick and choose when you want to see it. So right off the bat, it's like it's so important to just like get people behind a movement just using creative on social.
Yeah, I would agree. And I've also like heard and like learned that people need to see something repeatedly for it to sink in. So you might not like you might see something once and you're like, oh, okay, but it didn't really sink in. And like I think it takes something like at least 7 or 8 times for something to sink in. And like social media, it's very easy to kind of like re-talk about topics, re-talk about them under different lenses within different contexts, and play with the approach. So like I really love, when people do like reels that they just sit down and talk to something and they kind of point to the video behind them. I also
Mhm.
really love like infographics. I think the biggest thing is like people share uh images, not captions. So like I think it's really important that anything anybody shares, anything that you would want should be in an image. And I kind of have recently grown out of and into like I kind of hate when people are like I want to raise awareness, because I'm like we should be raising action, like we should be raising awareness around what you can do. And so I think just saying, oh, this is a problem, this is a problem, and then not necessarily also doing the extra step of saying, but here's how you can do something, or here's somewhere where you can follow, or like whatever. I think that that's kind of producing like this mass bystander effect. So I've definitely been myself toying with the idea that like I do want to talk about things, but also like, it's very clear that a lot of people are catching up to the urgency that is, climate change, environmental destruction, ocean issues, whatever. So, if people are interested in that, I think it's kind of on us to sort of like read that and hopefully deliver.
100%.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with both of you. And I think that, you know, Ariel, you kind of touched on something that was, I think, really important for this conversation, just in general about, social media and communications is, raising awareness is very important. But again, if there's not that action component, it's like, there's got to be some sort of follow up here, right? That's kind of leading to the second question here, like how can it impact conservation outcomes? How can it, actually have that tangible effect? And if there's no call to action, if there's nothing that you're asking of your audience, then, they learn this information, they can do with that what they want. But, if there's not something really specific that you're asking of them, they might just be sitting on that information and not do anything with it. So,
Yeah.
definitely very important.
It's honestly, there's also a fine line that I've noticed is I started asking something of anyone all the time and they got tired of it. They're like, oh, Kate posted again asking me to sign a petition. And I was like, okay, I get it. So it's important to like punctuate your social, your feeds with just like some fun, I call it fluff content. Just like that's why you go to Instagram to have a laugh or you're not asked to do anything. So whenever you do promotion, it also is important not to like slam things down people's throats because that can be, pretty easy because you're excited about it, but not everyone is going to be as excited. So you need to like slow baby steps, get them into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead,
we're
Erin.
answering that one. Yeah. So I was not ocean related directly, but I was a part of a campaign to get the Biden administration to pause permits on liquid natural gas. So you might have seen it a couple months ago. It was like LNG. It felt like a lot of people suddenly were talking about this. The gist of LNG, the 2-second version, is basically that like they will liquefy gas and then store it and then like ship it all over the world through like boats and stuff. It releases a ton of methane. It's super bad. And so I participated in this like social media campaign where I was getting people, one, aware of what LNG was because it's not something that people knew. Two, why it was so awful. And three, like right now we're at a critical point where this project is able to be paused, reassessed, move forward. So it wasn't just like, oh, this is something that's going to happen anyways. It was giving people the context of like, right
Mm.
now is a critical moment and like, we're not going to have this window forever. And I think, telling people in that instance, this window isn't open forever. It kind of signals to people, well, they're not going to be asking this of me forever. Hopefully, it puts a little bit of a fire into their butt. I definitely recognize though that there's like some issues that do need like long-term solutions, but I think for sure, like contextualizing again, like why it's bad, how quickly it is, how urgent it is, this can be done. I think it's really important to give people like hope of like you can impact this some way, somehow. And we did it because they did pause the permits and, you know, that was a big thing. And so now they're
Thanks
reassessing.
to you, honestly.
Me solely.
You are a hero.
Yeah, no, it was a great campaign to be a part of. A lot of people did a lot of great things on it. And I think, yeah, I mean, it was definitely a testament. And like, we were all super excited to read the New York Times article one day of like, this got paused. And it literally talked about the social media campaign. It like referenced that in the article. So that was crazy to be a part of.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And yeah, I think you really touched on the important point of recognizing your audience too, because like everybody has a niche, especially depending on where you are in the world, right? All of our audience we saw is like from every corner of the earth. And there are super local issues that, don't necessarily need to have this big, huge campaign, but it's all about tailoring your content to the people that you're actually trying to reach. And we're going to talk about that coming up. So specifically though, talking about the use of social media as a tool to kind of use as this way of, raising awareness and connecting with people and calls to action and stuff. Specifically, are there tools and resources that help you use social media? Do you think that there are aspects of social media that are overused, underutilized? And do you have any specific groups, organizations, individuals that you use for media inspiration? I'll let either one of you kind of take that first.
I'll go. So I guess for me as a meme maker, I have a meme app that I use. It sounds so dumb to say that out loud.
No, it's not dumb. Which one do you use?
Memematic. I pay $5 a
Mm.
month and I wrote it off on my taxes because
Hell yeah.
um and so yeah, I use Mematic. I think there are other ones out there. I just kind of started using that one and then like stuck to it. I also use apps to like squarify my image. I think that's how, like, if you follow my page, you know that I do like a lot of text heavy stuff. So like I'll screenshot, highlight, resize so that it's like as much text as possible. And that happens with like Square apps. So I can be like, okay, I need this to like fit again, or else it's just like a big block of text that's like cut off and like kind of awkward. Um,
I feel like some of your funniest memes are like size 3 font.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think for sure those are kind of like the things I use. I've done social media in other capacities, and then I think a lot of like Canva can be really useful. I
Yeah.
think like Canva is very useful if you are willing to play with it and have fun. Otherwise, it kind of just looks like a real estate flyer and it's like not very
Yeah.
exciting and engaging. So I think if you're willing to like do bright colors and like change up, maybe you start with a template if you're really like, I'm stuck, but then you kind of like change it bit by bit and like, I think those yeah, I think those are really good tools for
A
sure.
lot of their templates are really boring, so just be wary, and spice it up if you can. All
The
great
other thing about
tools.
Canva too, okay, I'm just gonna jump in,
Go
is
ahead.
that Canva is free for nonprofits. So if you are a registered 501c3 nonprofit, you can get Canva for free, the pro version, which is a wonderful tool that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, that you can get it for free if you're a nonprofit. So I just wanted to like throw that out there to anybody who's like associated with one of those kinds of groups. But yeah, Kate, go ahead.
It's also free for any user, so the premium part is free for a nonprofit, so anyone can use it. A couple other tools that I use is like a scheduler because it can be pretty time consuming and take over your life if you have to post every day. And so I use Buffer. Later is also another one where you can just do a whole bunch at once and then they post automatically. So that's another helpful tool. I This is kind of an interesting different one. It's called Hemingway. It's called Hemingway app, I think is the site. And you can put in text and it tells you how complex it is, right? So it will tell you what grade level it's at. And you try to aim between grade 6 and a grade 8. So sometimes you can put in text and it's like this is post grad level, and that's just not going to hit with social media. So you want to make sure it's kind of at a level where anyone can understand it. So that's a little more, complex, but it's something you do want to think about just so you making sure people actually get it and understand it and love it.
Yeah. And actually, that's a good point, Kate, too, with Hemingway app. If you are working on a campaign or an event that it has a really wide audience where you might have folks who do not speak English as their first language, making sure that your copyright is accessible to folks who, don't have English at a postdoc or postgrad level is really, really important. So that also helps with that aspect of things.
And
And
there's some great organizations out there. I know we haven't hit on that. Earthrise is spectacular. They're very heavily branded. I'm good friends with Earthly Education. That's at Earthly Education. She does some really Gigi does some fun, kind of memeified but kind of serious look at the climate. That's like less branded, but I take a lot of inspiration from them.
yeah, I love earthly education as well. Ariel, do you have any other groups that you look to for inspiration?
I definitely a big part of like what got me started was honestly like those Now This videos and AJ Plus. And then like when I think I started before Impact and Future Earth, but when I came across them, like I was like, "Oh my God, this is super crazy." And like again, I love context. Like I love getting into like rabbit holes. I like getting really into the weeds of things. So anytime anybody can really provide like context for something that I don't know anything about,
Hmm.
I really love it, and I really like the way that they present that kind of stuff. I also agree about like language. I think that like language needs to happen, and I think a lot of people, a lot of creators online would definitely be open to like potentially translating work. I think it's kind of like hard to ask, what language do people want this in? Because like you don't really know, right? And so I've definitely had some people be like, hey, can I translate your meme into, I think the most common ones are like Portuguese and Spanish. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm always like, yes, do that. And like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Send it back so that I can post it.
There's,
Yeah.
I'm going to send it in the chat here. There's a group called Climate Cardinals, which is a youth-led group, and they do translations of scientific papers on climate change so that all of that information is available in as many different languages as they can. I think it's mostly volunteer-based, so I don't know, if every single resource that they have available is um, available in all of the same languages, but yeah, Climate Cardinals, I'm going to send it in the chat in a second. But yeah, I think, there are a lot of tools. If any of you guys have any other questions about the specific techniques of things, we can talk about that in the Q&A, but we're going to move to the next question, which is kind of moving on from those more technical things, but when you're running a campaign specifically and you have like an end date for this action that you have planned or the event that you're running or whatever it is that you're promoting, how do you actually take that and kind of work backwards to create a promotional strategy? Are you just on social media? Do you use other channels of communication? Is it all digital media? Do you use print media? Like, how do you kind of go about tackling a promotional strategy?
Yeah. So I basically exclusively work in like the online space and almost exclusively actually Instagram. So like I cannot speak to all those other ones. And I will get kind of like hired out to participate in different promotional stuff. I like to make sure that I understand what it is that I am promoting. So my background is not in science, like formally education wise, like I don't have a bachelor's of science or anything like that, which at first I think made me really self-conscious, but now is probably my biggest asset because I think that's where my strength comes into play, where I have to fully understand something in order for me to be able to break it down into like, oh, I don't have like the educational background or the context or anything like that. Um, so it helps me sort of break things down to like that language that kind of everybody can understand. You can't teach something unless you understand it yourself. So I think for sure that's like the biggest thing that I do when I think about like how am I putting this together, what are different ways that I can approach it. There's no one way that somebody's going to receive something, right? So like if I'm doing a promotional strategy, I know that I'm going to have more than likely more than one post or at least more than one image. And so if that's the case, like how can I use maybe like I might use humor in every single one, but I might use like different visuals, like talking about the exact same thing. And how can I kind of like use the visual language of like a meme and how can I relate the relationships of the objects within a photo to like the concept. So, yeah, like sometimes you use size, sometimes like the iceberg one is a really easy one, right? Because like we can be like what people think environmentalism is, and then it's like recycling, zero waste, and then it's like what it actually is, and you actually have all the stuff underneath it. Like that kind of visual language is like sort of what I'm talking about.
And I'm definitely more with only one, at least, very much on the policy side. So I'll start and do a huge campaign, like start to finish. And it's like things to think about is one is who are you trying to target, right? What kind of people, what age, what background, what's their political, there's so many things to think about. Um, Once you have that, you can think about, okay, what content would they pause at? Right? Because even just stop it, letting them look at the content is great, but then how can you get it to the next level of like going to a link in bio, which is a whole nother ball of wax we can get into later. Um, but then you can also take it offline. So Instagram's huge, but also you kind of are stuck with the algorithms. And if the algorithm's not great that day, then your stuff really won't be seen. So then I think about, okay, what other platforms? Example, Threads, not it, at least for me, and I have not noticed it. So I'm not gonna like spend my time on that for now. Twitter, that's kind of on a downfall right now, so I'm also not gonna spend my time. TikTok, that's really getting really big. I'm going to look for influencers in the space. If you have any, small budget, a lot of the times, if it's a good cause, a lot of creators will partner up and try to help you spread the word. Hashtags are helpful just for tracking purposes, just if you want to see if how many people have caught along or supporting the campaign and the cause. So there's all of that to think about. And then if you want to take it offline, are you going to do offline events? Are you going to do handout posters? There's like a million of things to think about, and sometimes it's overwhelming. So you want to kind of pick a lane and stick to it. And if that's Instagram, awesome, great, start there. And just work on that for a little bit. And then one other thing is important is to figure out like if you give your elevator pitch, right, for your promotion. If someone has literally 5 seconds, what are you going to tell them? And what are you going to ask them to do? Because at the end of the day, that's your key messaging, and you're going to want to keep going back to that because it's really easy to get sidetracked. So again, I could do a whole master class on this, I think, but for the most part, elevator pitch, think about your target audience and find a path and stick to it.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you both for putting that kind of in context, because I think both of you kind of said that it can be kind of overwhelming putting together a strategy for sure, especially if it's, a bigger international broader campaign, where you have this audience, like I was saying before, talking about determining what your target audience is. That's what this last question here is. So, we talked about using different platforms, and if you have a campaign that's really local, reaching out to a regional newspaper to have an ad or like an article or an opinion piece in there is something that you can do. But if it's, you're not really sure where to start with that, you don't know exactly who you should be going after for your specific campaign, how do you actually kind of figure out who you want to talk to? How do you determine your best target audience?
Do you want to go first, Kate? Or I could go first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is tricky, right? Like this is the ultimate question is like how do you figure that out? I have an example here. So I'm working on a campaign right now that's targeting uh to stop the expansion of petrochemicals in Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So right off the bat, I have a location of like where that campaign is going to be, which is helpful. Sometimes it's way more broad than that. And then like, okay, the most powerful people on my petitions would be conservatives. So I'm looking for conservatives and middle age. So it's okay, where do conservative middle-aged people live? Like where are they? Facebook, right? So you're immediately trying to like think about where they are. And then when I'm making actual images, it's like, okay, conservatives, American flags, colors to think about. Just like general ideas of how would they pause, right? It's not a bad thing. It's any political affiliation is fine, but what can I really do to grab these people? So you're just trying to, it's honestly like a puzzle, right? You're constantly trying to experiment. Some things aren't going to work, and that's okay. Definitely some jokes work with others, and some just fall flat. Again, all of this is still a win for you because you're learning from it. It's hard to think that because if a post is really poorly, you're like, oh no, that sucked. But no, it didn't. Like that's incredible information, and you can know moving forward like this isn't it. I need to adjust and pivot, and it could be like a different image. It could be a different way to maybe I should try Twitter and not Facebook. Excuse me. And again, it's you're a detective. Try to figure it out. And have fun with it, right? Once you get your target audience, it will be pretty obvious. But sometimes your target audience is going to be really hard to get, and that's like kind of the point. In which case, it's a game. So try things.
Yeah, and I would say that for me, like, unlike Kate, who is trying to do a target audience, normally people come to me because like they feel that I have access to their target audience. So because, I have people that are following me that like say another organization wants access to, what that looks like for me is they might say, we want to talk about kelp and like regeneration as like a topic, right? So then I have to sit and think, okay, this is kind of perfect because my page, I try to avoid things like fast fashion, veganism, plastics, not because I don't care about them. I think they're very important issues, but I think that everybody talks about fast fashion and there's so many channels dedicated to veganism. And so for me, I'm really interested in talking about the things that people are not talking about. So when someone says, I want to talk to you about kelp regenerative agriculture, I'm like, you came to the exact right
The
place.
weirder, the better.
The weirder the better, and you came to the right place. And so I know what I bring to the table is not me saying I do not care about any of these things. It's me saying, like, I want to cater to a market that I don't feel is being catered to. And so when I think about that, I say, yeah, this is like the facts of it. Like these are the boring facts that, like, maybe this is why this is not a hot button issue. How can I make this seemingly boring issue funny or sexy or like a provocative, or how do I get people thinking about it beyond just, oh, regenerative agriculture, snooze, so like it's stuff like
Next.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Ariel. And it all kind of depends on, what your audience is. Because for you, it makes sense to kind of avoid certain things because other people, you're like, that niche is filled. Like, I don't have to worry about that because I know so many people are talking about it. So yeah, it's all about, and then Kate, like you said, trial and error, honestly, like just figuring out what works best for you. So absolutely. Um, so now we're going to get into more of the messaging side of things when we actually are thinking about, how to put together, why does this thing matter? All of those like checklist points, Ariel, that you were talking about before. Why does it matter? Why is it so bad? What can we do about it? There's a lot of different approaches that people can take to explaining all of that for whatever the issue is at hand. And, different people respond differently to different things. So when we're talking about, as a young person who is leading a campaign or, is trying to do promotion on social media using different communication skills, what are some things, like what are some skill building things that young people should be trying to do to, strengthen their ability to storytell, to get this information out there? Like, what are the qualities that you think are most important for a storyteller advocating for a conservation cause?
Yeah, I will definitely. I think one of the most important things is if you are going to commit to storytelling today in 2024 about like environmental issues in any capacity, doesn't matter whether it's oceans or agriculture or literally anything, you have to understand that you are not just committing to providing information. You have to understand that you're committing to moving the needle and helping change the culture. So much of like successful storytelling means that we have to rethink our relationships, right? So like the most famous ocean environmental picture is that turtle with the straw, right, in its nose. That picture for, there are so many pictures of like things that humans have done that have impacted animals that haven't been great. But for whatever reason, like that picture really helped resonate with people and be like, oh my God, like my actions like impacted that. That straw was somebody's. Nobody knew who it was, but like, you know, now I think it's really trendy to say like, oh, straws don't matter, like they're not the biggest thing. But I think that a lot of us would be lying if we didn't say that like straws were how we got our in. And like maybe you started with straws and maybe now you're like advocating for way bigger things and you realize that straws are not the biggest bad guy, but for whatever reason, like that was what resonated with you. So I think, understanding that like if you want to talk about why we should conserve the habitat of a seahorse, saving the habitat of a seahorse is not really going to like impact anybody like in their day to day. Whether that like for most of us, whether that seahorse's habitat like lives or falters is not going to necessarily impact your material life. So you're really not talking about, okay, what's the issue with this like habitat and why should we save it? But you're talking about, okay, this habitat is not just this habitat. We have to think about the broader implications. We have to think about domino effects. And it's not just those seahorses that go down, it's all these other things. And like, there's a lot of people, there's definitely an argument to be made that regardless of whether humans benefit or not, like, we should just protect things because other living things like need it. But I think if you're trying to like include the story like telling element, it is important for people to know, how does this impact me? So you can say like, we're going to destroy this seahorse's habitat. It's going to go up the food chain. That's going to impact fishermen. That's going to impact all these indigenous groups. It's going to impact all these communities around the world and countries that have that do a seafood heavy diet. So you have to really, again, contextualize, like, why does this matter? How do we challenge? And you have to understand that, like, as a storyteller, and if you're challenging and changing the culture, there will be pushback. So, like, I don't want to say it's not for the weak, but it's not for the weak. And if you, and if like you have to like learn to not take things so personally, right? And you have to remember that like none of us in this call, maybe a couple people, but a lot of people in like the developed world did not, come out of the womb like perfect environmentalists. So like you have to think about your journey and like how you got to where you were, and recognize that there are other people going down that path. And when you're talking online, you're meeting people at like all different points of that. Some people are in the beginning of their journey and some people are way ahead. Yeah.
Yep, totally. I guess I have three big points for storytelling here. One is you are telling a story online, so cite your sources. Right now, there's just like misinformation everywhere, and it's so important, even if it's at the end, just to show where you got your information, because a lot of people are spewing God knows what, and it's you're gonna bring legitimacy and authenticity to it just by having something backing what you're saying. So that's important. Something that's like not overlooked, but I think critical is great imagery. And I'm just gonna name a few. It's hard to get good imagery for free, but there are sites out there. There's stuff obviously such as Pexels, which World Ocean Day is going to be doing a competition with later, so keep your eyes out there. Shameless plug. And I also a while back created something called the Ocean Image Bank. That's when I was with the Ocean Agency, and there's thousands of images you can download, high res of the ocean. Obviously, not all climate things, but those are free for use, non-commercial. So there, and Canva has some great stuff. There's just some great things that you can do to really make your stories splash, because it's expensive sometimes to get out there and actually get your own content. And like my last point here is keep it short and sweet. It's super easy to get on your soapbox and start talking because you're excited about it. But I think everyone on TikTok, you give them like you give a video like 3 seconds, and if for some reason if it doesn't scratch part of your brain, you keep going. So you want to make sure it's fairly short, or at least you loop someone in fast, so then you can tell your story in a little more depth. But for the most part, I think one of the general rules that I follow is the simpler the better. Get your point across, keep it moving, and people will love you for it.
Yeah, very, very important points from both of you. And I want to add a principle that I always bring up during this session of advocacy training is ethos, pathos, logos. If any of you have, done literature studies, a lot of the times that's something that comes up. And ethos is, how do you appeal to somebody's sense of authority? Like, I need to do this because this is the right thing to do. Pathos is appealing to somebody's emotion, so that's something like Ariel, the video of the turtle with the straw up its nose, like that's a highly emotional visual. You have empathy for this creature that's in pain. And then there's logos, which is appealing to people's logic, like, okay, if we continue down this path of creating a climate disaster, we're not going to have any food, water, viable planet to live on. Like, there's a lot of different ways that we can go about like applying logic to these things. So I'll write that in the chat in a moment as well. But I also want to talk about these next two questions. You both kind of talked about on some of the pitfalls or mistakes that people can come across when trying to tell a narrative. So I would like to focus on this third question. How does authenticity and transparency enhance the overall narrative of what you're trying to get across?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I think a, a pitfall and authenticity. I think like people will say, oh, I have an opportunity to talk about this, and they won't always ask, am I the best person to talk about this? And I think that like there's a fine line, right? So there's a fine line between like, hey, we need as many people talking about this as possible. We need to get all eyes on this. And then there's also sometimes like, do I really know what I'm talking about? Or am I just repeating things that are like said back at me? And like sometimes, that means that you might, instead of just automatically like saying yes, it might mean that you need like an hour or two to like get around it. It might mean you need a couple of days or even a week. But I think if you don't really know what you're talking about and you can't really answer any questions, I think people then are like sort of suspicious of like, why are you talking about this? Like, what do you care about it? So the more, again, I think the transparency thing comes down to like context. So like the more that you know and the more that you can break things down, the better. And it seems more like, oh, this person does care about this, because like when you care about something, you learn about it and you nerd out about it. And if you can't really nerd out about it and you're really only like, think about those videos where, we see them on TikTok and Instagram where somebody's trying to like raise awareness, but they only talk about like the most basic things that everybody's talking about, and like they don't really go slower, or not slower, but like they don't really go more in depth. And it's just like, hey guys, like I love the ocean and like we should not do this, blah 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 blah. But like, I think authenticity comes with like depth and like information and like a willingness to show other people that like you too are learning and that like you want to bring them along in this learning journey with you.
Yeah, and even if you want, and if you even if you know you're not an expert, at the start, be like, guys, I am not an expert, but I learned this incredibly cool fact. So like own it. Like, because the fact is you're spreading this knowledge. Sure, you're not an expert on it, and maybe you're not like the forefront of teaching people about it, but you're excited about it. So you can also just admit up front, and that's being very authentic. And people love kind of feeling that they're on your level as well. Like, let's all learn, like, let's all geek about this fact about nudibranchs right now together, and then we can all go research more about it and get back together and talk about it on a WhatsApp group, kind of stuff. So authenticity is key, especially in this world of TikTok where people just want you to be you, and just to see your personality, and they don't want some like scripted, I mean, researched is good, but they don't want like this the kind of formulaic, um boring social to look at. So just be you and be upfront, and no need to worry about looking stupid.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that there is a very odd expectation of climate advocates specifically that in order to make change concerning the climate crisis, you have to be a climate science expert. Advocates of the climate crisis are always grilled with these crazy, super intense questions about like greenhouse gases and super specific statistics for things. And I think that's just really unreasonable to ask of every single person. And this is applicable to any social, economic, political issue ever in the world, anywhere, that if you care about something and you know it's important, even if you're not 100% an expert on something, again, like you both said, being transparent and being clear and just saying like, I know this is important. I still want to talk about it. Even though I don't know 110% of the background on it, I still want to talk about it because I know it's impacting people in a negative way. It's impacting the planet in a negative way. And that's really important. So yeah, I think owning that transparency is absolutely key to this conversation. So now we're going to get into some of these other questions. Kate, you mentioned earlier your kind of fluff content. So I would love for you to kind of explain what you're talking about when we talk about that. And then, yeah, just talking about how do you balance fluff versus educational, funny versus serious? Like, where do you kind of draw the line between those things? How do you find that balance for
Yeah.
both?
Honestly, Go Green, Save Green is a perfect mix of them all the time. So that's like gonna be interesting to hear from you, because it's literally stuff that I would share, but it's also serious and has a point. Whereas a lot of my other accounts, my fluff really is like a beautiful video of dolphins jumping, right? It's stuff that you want to see, you want to share with your friends because this is incredible. Share to your story, but there's not actually any action attached to it. So it's there to kind of put a buffer in my feed to make make people actually want to come here without feeling like they're being totally, told what to do every time I post. And again, like that's the kind of stuff that usually does really well. So it's viral videos. There's a million different examples. Whereas educational stuff is, as in the title, it's educating someone. So this could be infographics, this could be an explainer, this could be even just a fluff content with a call to action. So like a beautiful turtle swimming through the ocean, and at the end it's like a petition to sign 30 by 30. So you can start to mix them. I recently, more or less, my algorithm's been a little wonky. So I do around 30% educational right now, and the other 70% is fluff. That will skew really depending. I like to keep it more to like 60% um fluff, 40% educational, so it's a little more educational, but right now I'm just not getting the reach that I used to. So it changes all the time. It's really, you kind of look at comments, you get the vibes of like what people are looking for. Have I not posted anything educational in a while? Then I'm going to throw some educational, some fluff content in there, vice versa. So it's a constant game. There's no actual secret sauce to it. It's just figuring it out. Honestly, though, go green, save green might be the secret sauce. So I'm going to let you speak to that.
So I kind of mix educational and fluff. I think is the secret sauce is that like I think there are topics that like deserve respect and not to be like humored, and I think that like those are pretty obvious, like I'm not gonna meme certain things, but I think for the most part, unless it's like if it's not something that, I think is disrespectful to like add a humor twist to it, then it's fair game. So like, I think for sure mixing funny can help people. The biggest feedback that I've gotten, whether it be DMs, comments, people reaching out to me via email, whatever, is that like it helps me to receive scary information with a dose of like humor, because then I, one, don't feel so scared about it. It doesn't feel the same as like when you're reading a really terrifying article, or like maybe I am sharing a terrifying article, but I'm also kind of being like, look, it is serious, but also like, you know, don't stress in the sense that like this is not solvable. Typically my memes will also have like some solution that maybe is not being implemented. So it's trying to find like the silver linings or like pathways. Maybe we haven't figured something out yet, but it seems like we have, through research, like answers to how we could move forward. And so, I think if I'm sharing a really scary article, thinking about the Insta post of and the memes that I'm making, like what parts of this could be funny, how could I kind of help calm readers down a little bit? And then also when I'm posting just straight up fluff content, because I don't always post educational content. Sometimes I just post like tweets or my own memes. Um, I I wish that I was organized enough to like set out my posts and make posts for a week and then call it a day. I am not. I've tried it many times. I've worked social media jobs that were not related. I have tried in so many, I cannot. Like, I have to make my stuff off the cuff. Like, the most I can do is like the day before.
It's a comedian's way of life, guys. You
Yeah.
just can't plan for these things. It just comes to you.
100%. And if I'm not feeling it, like I can't, and I have to know when to say I need a break because I get burnt out. Like I don't always
Yeah.
have the answers. So I think when I think about fluff and just plain funny content, I think about like shared experiences, right? So like what are challenges that are very unique to people that are into nature, people that are into learning, people that are like into the environment, I'll make all kinds of things. Like I think I even made a meme once of like when you're going on a hike and you step your foot right on a puddle of water, but you like don't go all the way in. Like that's such a like niche thing, but so many people were like, "Oh my God," And so like I think in that instance when I'm talking about like our interactions with nature or like stuff like that, or like, "Oh my God, like I'm full of PFAs." Like it helps people feel like they're not alone. And like it kind of makes you feel like you are a part of this community. And hopefully you're relating. If you see me as an environmentalist and I'm able to share like experiences that I have that you also have, hopefully you feel like you can connect to me and not me as in like Ariel because my face isn't on there, but like whatever you identify as like an environmentalist.
It's so funny. It's true because all the funniest TikToks are the ones that you like thought no one else experiences, but turns out there's not a single original thought out there.
Exactly.
Die laughing.
There's no such thing as an original thought.
No,
Absolutely not.
truly.
No, it's true. And honestly, Ariel, I think what you've said about this kind of touches on our next question too, talking about going viral. And it's kind of up in the air. Like you can't really predict the kinds of things that are going to go viral. Cause like talking about memes, my favorite, you're like, oh, we're full of PFAs. The Spider-Man meme where there are like three of them like pointing at each other and it's like Gen Z filled with microplastics, millennials filled with like I don't remember.
Yeah,
Something
and
bad.
Gen Z
Asbestos or
Something bad,
something.
and then like
and
boomers filled with lead. Yeah, like, they're all like pointing at each other. It's just so funny, and stuff like that with humor, I think, is more likely to go viral. But it's kind of impossible to kind of figure out. And then, I do want to make sure that we have time for Q&A because we do have some really, really wonderful questions in here. And this last question on here does kind of have to do with one of the questions in the Q&A right now. So I do want to talk on how do you deal with negativity? Ariel, you kind of already talked about like getting burnt out from stuff as well. And
yeah.
I know that kind of can be a contributing factor to some of this stuff. So yeah, how do young people kind of stay away from or at least deal with that negativity?
So this is actually a really interesting question. When I was coming up, I came up with some other influencers that are like big in this space now, and they showed a lot more of their faces. I think it's a lot more common for influencers in the climate space to show their face and be like, "Hey guys, I'm talking about this." And I got that advice a lot myself, and I know myself, and I repeatedly would tell them like, "Thanks, but no." I find that like if you can't attack me personally, you're just attack the page, and I have the mental like ability to separate my page from me. But when I see people attacking your identity because you're saying, "Hey guys, like check this thing out," blah blah blah, and then they're like you and attacking whatever it is, whether it be your gender, your race, anything like that, like it feels a lot more personal. So I would say really think about like, you know, let's say you get 100,000 followers. Like, can you handle, look at accounts that have that many followers and look at like the negative things. Can you handle some people saying that to you? And if not, like, there are so many pages out there that have nothing to do with it. And it is so much easier for me to like roll off my back negative things. And don't get me wrong, there's been days where I've wanted to throw my phone at the wall and be like, you guys don't deserve this. But I think for
We
sure,
don't. We don't.
I think for sure, like, not making it about me, making it about we has been like a really, really helpful thing. And I would definitely tell anybody, like, really think about it. Why are you doing this? Because the unfortunate matter is that like w- the easiest idea is what we see, right? So like if we see everybody saying, "Hey guys, blah 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 blah," most people are going to think that that's the way to success. But there's a lot of other ways. And like, maybe you don't need to show your face. Maybe you don't need to like put yourself out there to deal with that kind of negativity.
And also, there's always going to be haters. Like,
Yeah.
always. And my life is fairly short. So I'm going to block any people who just like start spamming my page because that's so great that you have time to do that, but I don't have time to respond and deal with this. So thank you for everything. Thank you for your comments, but I'm going to move on and block you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the block feature is a very important tool to use these days, especially in the time of all of the disinformation and conspiracy theories and stuff. That's one of these questions here in the Q&A. In an era of disinformation within social media, how does one build up and gain credibility? How can the viewers keep a lookout for disinformation? And I think honestly, blocking folks who are spamming your page with nonsense is a great way to start. But do you guys have any kind of insight on credibility and disinformation?
Yes, I have worked on several disinformation campaigns. And personally, for me, the way that I uh, hope that gained credibility and built that up was the fact that I show articles, right? So I'm not just making memes and saying like, oh, ha ha ha, like this is how, single family housing is actually a big climate issue. And you're like, what? I didn't know anything about that. And like, if you don't know anything about that, you might think that I'm lying, right? You might not realize like, oh, urban sprawl and all these other things. So like, if I make a meme about something, I try to talk about it. I almost always talk about it because it very easily can a meme be turned into something that it's not, or be contextualized into something that it's not. So if I share the funny thing, I give you the 2-second version so that you get the gist of it, and then I go to the in-depth version. I include the article title. I usually include where the article's from. I like include the author, so you can go yourself and Google this and say like, hey, this is this article that I read, this is this author, where can I find more information on that?
I've
um
always had mad respect for you. I see those screenshots of those papers and I was like, boom, there it is.
yeah.
Can't argue it. I mean, you can, but good luck.
Yeah. So that's personally how I do it. That's
Yeah.
why I think context, more and more context always.
Yeah. And when I do fact sliders, I always just put a source, right? So anyone can go and look, and if they really want to, like, I do my due diligence, but if you really think it's wrong, go look at BBC. I hear it's a pretty credible site. Do your own research, totally into it. I'm all for it. So just add a source if you think it might be controversial.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I also see this question in here. Lots of companies have environmental policies and promotions on a shallow level to make them seem more appealing. How can we expose this and differentiate between authentic and less impactful projects? So what this is talking about is greenwashing. If anybody watching this does not know that term, that is very important in this space to make sure that we are aware of these kinds of weird disinformation campaigns. It's kind of related to that last question. So if either of you want to talk about how we recognize and dissuade greenwashing, go ahead.
I don't actually, so yeah, that's a whole beast, but there are laws being enacted right now in Australia. Last week, there's a new anti-greenwashing law.
Which
So
is amazing. Huge.
amazing. Politicians are finally getting involved about even the UK. I think there's some banks that need to stop, putting out wrong information. So it would be interesting just looking at the legal side. I know that doesn't help recognizing it, but people are working towards flagging it and making sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think for sure, like, in some ways, there's like this weird logic that like in some ways companies greenwashing is showing the like how important this is, right? So like they've taken the step to acknowledge like people care about sustainability, but they're not necessarily taking the step to say like we're actually going to go all the way. So I think, take that for what it is and say like if we have driven up enough demand to get them to think about it, like how can we basically keep that like banging that drum and be like, no, we need more. And I think that comes down to like learning and like you're never going to know how to differentiate an authentic and a less authentic project if you don't go into like the nitty gritty details.
Nitty ditty gritty.
Yeah, the nitty ditty gritty the nitty gritty details of like what that is. And like again, you just kind of have to be willing to nerd out. Like that's kind of like the end of it. And like there's no shortcut to that, and like I can't say, hey, there's this page or this influencer that's talking about this because we all have such different scopes and niches that like they might only know about like tree planting projects, but they might not know about like coral restoration projects. So everyone kind of has to find their own path with that, but there's no shortcut to getting into it.
I love the hot take that greenwashing is actually the start to something great because they are recognizing the power of people prioritizing sustainability, right? So they know it's important. They're just not willing to put the time and effort into it. They're just being the shallow parts of it. So it is bad, but it's start to something good.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's a stepping stone for us to be able to push them to do better. Exactly. We only have like a minute or two left, so I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of the questions in the Q&A, but we really appreciate you guys putting those questions out there. If you do have any questions you would like to chat about, feel free to send me an email at ljohnson@theoceanproject.org. I just want to go through a couple of announcements before we say goodbye for the day. So don't forget session 3 and session 4 are next Saturday and the Saturday after, same time, same place. I'm very excited for our event planning and fundraising session and our campaign organizing session. I think they're going to be great. We also have, as I mentioned last weekend, our 2024 World Ocean Day action theme, which is catalyzing action for the ocean and climate, bringing all of these ocean and climate concepts together and doing 12 months of action with every month on a specific issue themed focus. So for March and April, we're all about Global Plastics Treaty, making sure that world leaders come together and we can get a treaty signed and ratified that says we need to stop this practice of creating all of this waste. And just, yeah, Global Plastics Treaty is our focus for March and April. And then we also have gotten a lot of questions about certificates for this program. So yes, at the end of the 4 weeks, after session 4 on the 13th of April, we will be sending out a feedback survey. We do not have an official deadline for the feedback survey yet. I will let you all know when that deadline is, when the survey is sent out. But if you are able to complete a full completed survey by that deadline, we will send you some certificates of completion. So keep an eye out for that. We'll keep you updated on that process as we're getting closer to the end of the program. But for now, I just want to say a huge thank you again to Ariel and to Kate for joining us. It has been wonderful, and I'm really excited to continue this conversation online. Again, be sure to follow Ariel at Go Green, Save Green on Instagram. Follow us at World Ocean Day on all platforms as well. And yeah, just thank you guys so much for joining us for this conversation. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you, everyone. So fun to talk to you, Ariel.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.